Hey guys, this is Dana, and this is video number 47 in the Red Flags of a Narcissist series. Video number 47 is red flag number 47, which is the speed at which they move on. So, there's 5 main points in this video that I want to cover, but before I get into that, let me explain a little bit about what this red flag looks like in motion. So, generally, when they move on quickly, it's generally out of the clear blue. And so in your mind, you might be thinking, nothing happened. Like we weren't fighting. There was no, You're just kind of an average everyday thing. They might come home and announce that they're done. They've been unhappy for that you've made them happy for a long time, and that they're just done. They want a divorce, and they're either going to move out or they want you to move out. Like that's kind of how that goes down. Sometimes when this happens, it also happens around highly emotional times like birthdays or holidays like Christmas or Valentine's Day, or it could be around like a birth or a death, or you just found out that you have some sort of major illness, or that one of your children has a major illness, or somebody that you I mean there's some sort of highly charged additional emotional element at play. So there's that component. And then to add kind of insult to injury, what often happens is not only do they up and leave either during this highly emotional time or they leave out of the clear blue, you find out that you have been replaced. Like immediately within a week or two. Now they're living with this new person, right? Or they're dating somebody, but they probably already moved into this new person, and you think to yourself, this is insane. How were they able to move on so quickly? Like my world is falling apart, and they moved on. Not only like they're over the relationship, but like it almost never even happened. And so you might find to start discovering all of these things like, oh my gosh, they've torn down all of your pictures off of Facebook, and they've put up all new pictures with their new partner. They're plastering again all over social media about how happy they are, how this new person, how in love they are with this new person, how perfect their life is, that finally they have found happiness. And again, to kind of add additional insult to injury, now all these other people are coming out of the woodwork congratulating them. And you might feel like, am I losing my mind? Because we were married and for however long, a year, 10 years, 50 years, and now they've moved on like it's nothing. I've already been replaced and other people are congratulating them. Like, what is going on? Am I the only one that sees a problem with this? Like, it's very, very confusing and painful. So, why is this? How is this? How are they able to move on so quickly? So here are the 5 points that I want to cover in this video. First one has to do with the concept of narcissistic supply. Second concept has to do with the cycle of narcissistic abuse. The third one is how and why they're able to move on so quickly. The fourth is why do they end things in such hurtful ways? And then the last one is what narcissists typically do after they move on. So let me start at the beginning with the concept of narcissistic supply. So, narcissistic supply is a term that is used to describe basically how narcissists and other types of emotional manipulators view other people. It's all about them. So, all of us, everybody else, is a source of supply for them. So, the difference being between like a quote unquote normal person and a narcissist would be a normal person sees people as people, right? So we see another person, we're like, oh, this person has hobbies and likes and dislikes and quirks about them, and they have hopes and dreams and goals and fears, and they are a person, right? They have their own unique thing going on. Narcissists don't view people like this, and if they do, they definitely don't respect any of that. Their dynamic is one of what can I get out of this person. So again, this is where this term narcissistic supply comes into play. So narcissistic supply is whatever they can get out of another human being. Generally it's either transportation, or it's shelter, or it's money, sex, social status, public image. It's kind of the main ones. So whereas a quote unquote normal person would bond to another person based off of common ground, you know, there's this chemistry between them, that doesn't need to be there for a narcissist, because they're not trying to bond with another person. They're trying to get power and control over this other person and over the situation. And so they don't bond, they just attach. It's a very parasitic, one-sided dynamic where they latch onto this person and then they just start draining them dry. So when another source of potential supply comes along, which is bound to happen, if the new supply looks juicier than the current supply, then they attach to this new supply. So, and this is in part why a lot of their past relationships or even their current relationships tend to not make a lot of sense. There might not be a lot of rhyme or rhythm to it. So their previous partner might have been highly educated, and then their current partner is not at all. Or their current partner has a lot of money, but their last partner didn't. Or it could be even to a greater extreme where there's maybe a very large age difference between them, or these kind of undeniable major differences between them and their partner. So again, like age difference, education level, income level, social status level. It could even be something like the narcissist has identified as being straight as far as you've ever known, and then now all of a sudden the new partner is the same sex. And so that can be, and it can, or the or the narcissist identifies as being gay, and now the new partner is opposite sex. So those kinds of things where it's like, what's really going on here? But if you look at their choices in people in terms of supply, like what are they able to get out of this person? Is this new person, head of the marketing department, or head of the hiring department, or does this new person have money, or are they allowing this narcissist to live with them? Kind of what's going on there. So I think if you think about people in terms of supply, it makes a lot of this make a lot more sense. So the next element that I wanted to talk about was the cycle of narcissistic abuse. So this cycle runs traditionally: idealize, devalue, discard. However, I think a more fleshed out understanding of it would be idealize, devalue, replace, discard. So for us, we're thinking, wow, they really moved on quickly, thinking that this new person just came into the picture after our relationship ended. But that's not the case. Odds are that this new person has been around for a while. It's just we didn't realize it. Probably we didn't realize it because we didn't think that anything was wrong. There might not have even been signs of cheating or anything obvious going on. It's just all of a sudden they've moved on to this new person. So if you think about it in terms of supply and in terms of how the cycle really works, because they're parasitic, they go from person to person. They're very rarely single for any length of time. It's always these intense whirlwind romances that seem like soulmates. They seem really intense. They seem really deep, but they're oftentimes very short-lived. And even though they might actually be in marriages for years and years and years, there may be a pattern of them up and leaving that partner and then returning to that partner. So yes, they might have been married for 10 years, but they've upped and left that partner multiple times during that 10 years. So there tends to be bouts of infidelity, followed by periods of half-assed apologies, and then them moving back in for whatever reason. But whatever, I think it's important to realize, again, narcissists don't bond with people like how normal people bond with people. So if there is this pattern of them continuing to come around, and it's all, if you even get an apology, it's generally not sincere. It's this pattern that keeps recurring because they just do whatever they want to do, and they don't really want to deal with the consequences. So they kind of just they say whatever they need to say in order to continue to do what they need to do, or what they want to do, I should say, because they don't need to run amok and cause chaos and havoc. They just do because they can. So the next point is how and why are they able to move on so quickly? So like I mentioned, they are able to move on so quickly because they don't attach. They don't attach deeply to people. So, and this is really hard for us to understand because especially if you're with a narcissist who does such a really great job at saying all the right things and maybe even doing all of the right things. So you're thinking, I've met this perfect person. They're so good to me. This feels really healthy. And, but then they just up and leave. So I think it's helpful to look at this in terms of how, like a small child, when a small child wants something. So let's say, for example, you have a 6 year old who really wants a puppy, right? They really want this puppy and they will promise to feed the dog and walk the dog and clean up after the dog and bathe the dog and love the dog, and all they talk about is the dog, and they just want this dog and please, please, please. And they're so intense and they're so persistent, right? And they're so convincing. But you as an adult know, like, okay, yes, puppies are fun and it's easy, right? It's free and easy to talk about how great of a dog owner you're going to be. But you know, as the adult, that the child doesn't get it. The child doesn't understand this long-term commitment. And so as the adult, you're thinking about things in terms of, okay, the vet cost, long lasting cost. I'm probably going to have this dog for at least a solid 20 years. Is this dog a good fit for our family? Is this, is this the responsible thing to do for our family and for a dog? And you're thinking about like the bigger picture of this because odds are that as the adult, you're probably going to get stuck with taking care of the puppy, right? Like that's how that tends to work because a 6 year old has no idea of the kind of commitment that they're getting into. It's the same thing with a narcissist. So when they tend to, during that idealized stage, when they're promising the sun and the moon and the stars and they just want you so bad and they're saying and doing all the right things and they're so persistent and they're so focused on you, right? It can feel, if we have an empty bucket, and especially an empty emotional bucket, it can feel so amazing, right? But odds are we realize like this is too good to be true. Healthy adults don't move like this. Healthy adults don't profess their unwavering love for another person within 2 weeks of knowing them. Like they don't know me well enough to to do this, right? And the reality is, yes, this is all very unhealthy behavior, but it's because narcissists don't attach, they don't bond at a deep level. So words and actions are just cheap and easy for them because there is no long term for them. There is no commitment. It's all about whatever they want, and they just go from thing to thing. So that's how they're able to move on so quickly, is that they're never fully bonded like we are. So I hope that story helps for that to make sense. So why do they end things in such hurtful ways? Well, so part of narcissistic supply has to do with making themselves feel important. And a great way that they do this is by taking an already intensely emotional time. So like a birthday or a holiday or a death or a birth or something like this, and just causing tremendous amounts of stress and pressure by up and leaving during these times. And so oftentimes targets of narcissists or partners of narcissists will beg and plead, and it's this intensity and please don't go and I need you right now and I can't believe you're doing this, and it's so flared up, it's so over the top, it becomes so incredibly dramatic. But the more intense reaction we give them, the more in their mind it's letting them know how important they really are and how much it feeds their ego. Like I was able to evoke some sort of intense reaction in this other person is kind of the thought process there. So realizing this is not a coincidence that they're doing this when they're doing it. They're just very dramatic people, and because it feeds their ego, it feeds their sense of self. So here's another part in this with them moving on, and what can be, I think, confusing for a lot of people. This is something that I experienced too, was they may blame you. They might just say, I've been unhappy for a while or whatever. But what can really be crazy making and really confusing is if they blame themselves for needing to move on so quickly. They might say, I really don't want to hurt you, or I don't deserve you, or they must go take care of somebody else who has cancer or is sick, or they must join the Peace Corps, or they must go do this heroic good deed thing. And so you might be thinking, oh my gosh, this amazing person it's again, it's just, it's so soap opera. It's so Lifetime TV movie that they are so good that they must leave. But then, I mean, if you really slow down to think about it, it's like, oh, they're such a good person that they have to screw me over, because that's really what they're doing. They're up and just dropping you, because it's sort of like, well, I must go move across the country to be closer to my children that never mattered to before, right? Like that's, or I must go take care of my ex-wife who now has cancer. But then odds are you find out that none of this is even true. And so, and then, or they might say something like, I really must go. For whatever reason, like if they're trying to save face and trying to appear like that, that we're to blame or whatever. But then they might kind of end it with, I will always think of you, or whenever I see yellow roses, I will be reminded of you. And it's something that we just feel like, oh, they're hurting us. But then it's like, oh, but they still love us. And really kind of what that is that's opening the door for a Hoover down the road, which I'll link to a video on Hoovering so you can read or watch more about that. So, what is the last point here? The last point is what narcissists typically do when they move on. So after they move on, like I said, they are probably tearing everything off of Facebook. They're putting up pictures of their new partner, their new house, their new life. It's creepy. It's weird because it's like, it's just, they didn't miss a beat. Like they're just, just switched over. It's really strange. And other people might be congratulating them. So now what they're doing is what's called a smear campaign. And it's where they basically have now spun the situation around to make them the victim of you or of us, right? And so now everything that they had said about their previous partner, which is generally some form of that they are an addict, an alcoholic, abusive, neglectful, crazy, bipolar, personality disordered, that their ex is all of these things. And generally, if you listen to them, all of their exes are like this, that they are the victim in this the perpetual victim. They're either the victim or the hero in the situation. But generally, so they've been planting these seeds for a long time to try to protect their image and portraying you as the bad guy. And so then when they leave, they'll make it sound like they had no choice but to leave. They only put up with you because there was something profoundly wrong with you and that they were the hero in the situation. So it's absolutely crazy making. Trying to actually fight a smear campaign can be incredibly difficult. And there's just so many layers of understanding in all of this and in healing from it. And there's a lot. So with all that said, if you guys are looking for additional support with this, the best place to find me and lots, thousands of other people that have gone through something similar and trying to move forward with healing is to join a support group. So I'm going to link to mine down below in the description. I always encourage people, join a handful of support groups. There's tons of them online. And the benefit to that is you can see which groups resonate with you the best. And then that way you can go from there. So that's what I got for you. I'll be curious to see what you guys have to say about this red flag in the comments down below, and we'll go from there. So lots of love to you guys. You are not alone. You are not crazy, and you can move forward and heal from this. So take care, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.